What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here coming back at you with another 2 minute drill to kick off the week of March 22nd. And as always, man, y'all know what comes on Mondays. And I knew this day was coming. I'm still probably not ready for it, but we have to talk about it. The Jackson State Tigers fall to the Alabama State Hornets 35-28 down in Montgomery, Alabama. And man, I knew it was going to happen. I just, it still kind of seems surreal to me that they got beat the way they did. I understand the score was 7 points, but they were pretty much outclassed at times by Alabama State. But, to start this off, let's go ahead and get to the issue of, this game really had everything you could have wanted in a game. It had the crazy ending, the back and forth ending, spectacular performances by multiple players on both sides of the ball. They also had amazing energy from the crowd to the announcers to the teams to the coaches. The energy surrounding this game was excellent. I was so glad to see it on ESPN2, where a lot of people could actually catch this game. I know it was in the middle of March Madness, so that could be a problem, but I was very, very excited that this was on mainstream national television instead of like ESPN Plus or 3 or whatever they want to call it. And the game was surrounded in a little bit of controversy. There was a lot of flags thrown at the end, lack of discipline from some players at the end. But I think this game was absolutely amazing. And, I think the Hornets really exposed some serious problems for Jackson State and this team that we may have missed. We may have probably just overlooked or ignored them at times when they were winning big and beating teams that they really outclassed. And this could have probably been a wake up call for Jackson State and this coaching staff and everything like that. I think this was a big wake up call in terms of what they need to improve on. And before we get into some issues on Jackson State, I know we like to cover mostly Jackson State on this podcast. I want to give some credit to Alabama State. The rushing game for that team was absolutely dominant, and it was the difference in the game. I mean, across the whole game, and at the end, it was the difference. I mean, Urza Gray sealed the game with a 50-yard rushing touchdown, about a minute 30 left in the game, and Jackson State could never recover. And speaking of Urza Gray, he's got to be the MVP of the game. He put on an electric performance, just one that we haven't seen in some time, man. I mean, this kid was balling, and then Jackson State had no answer for him. They didn't have a linebacker, a D lineman, a scheme, anything to slow this kid down, and he absolutely put on a show. Almost 200 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, and the big kicker here, man, he averaged over 8.5 yards per carry. So every time this kid touched the ball, he about got you a first down. And if you're going to beat a team like Alabama State on the road with this team that Jackson State put together, you cannot allow a kid to run for almost 9 yards every time he touches the ball. He showed elite explosion when he found a hole. He showed patience for the right hole to open up, and he showed outstanding playmaking ability. Anytime he had the ball in his hands, there was a chance he was going to take it to the house, take it for a big play. And Urza Gray is the main reason we're sitting here talking about Alabama State pulling off a huge upset over Jackson State. And, the defense for Alabama State, I want to get to them too. They deserve some credit. They held Jackson State, I believe it was their lowest yardage total of the season. And that was the storyline the announcers kept coming back to throughout the game. This defense, guys, okay, I don't know if anyone else who's covering HBCU football, covering this game, is going to talk about this. The energy was just contagious for Alabama State the whole time. You could tell that this was like almost their Super Bowl. I mean, these kids were going to come out there, go a million miles an hour, and they were going to make plays. I mean, you look at the goal line. I believe they called the kid Bubba, the linebacker who busted through the hole and about took the Jackson State running back's head off at the goal line. And then the next play, even though I believe Jackson State scored or almost scored, about killed Jalen Jones on a blitz that he wasn't picked up on. Every time they made a play, the team was celebrating. The team was excited. And they were so happy to be in this game, and they were going to prove a point. And I think that contagious energy really spread to both sides of the ball, whether it be Urza running the ball, that defense making big stops or turnovers. I think it was infectious among that team. They found ways to get pressure. They found ways to get penetration all throughout the game, and it affected Jackson State's running game and really affected Jalen Jones at time. And this also caused major red zone issues. If Jackson State could just put the ball in the end zone at times, I feel like this game wouldn't have been as close, and it definitely wouldn't have probably been a loss for Jackson State. But Alabama State showed backbone. They found ways to make plays down the stretch to win a game. And sometimes you just got to have that. And they had 5 sacks that showed an outstanding ability to disguise their blitzes, find ways to make Jones uncomfortable because Jones has been the X factor for Jackson State thus far. And, I want to move to Jackson State. I'm very upset that I have to talk about this team like this, but they should have plenty to work on at practice this week. There were a lot of issues that I think were exposed this week that are going to have to be fixed if they're going to realistically compete for the SWAC title. And I got a few listed here, so let's go through them. I believe there's like 3 that were the main ones I want to talk about. The first one, the third down woes that we saw for this offense. 6 for 20 on third down, guys. I mean, that hurt momentum. So I talked about Urza in that running game, breaking down that defense for the end. I think these third down woes for the offense was a huge factor in this because they couldn't sustain drives, and I think that defense kind of wore down there to the end. You can't go 6 for 20 in a game like this. This was linked to a lot of woes. I get it. The third down woes were mostly linked to the third and longs, which we're going to get in terms of sacks, a lack of a rushing attack. So this was getting into 3rd and 12, 3rd and 20, 3rd and 15 type of area. And this is hard to succeed when you don't have an elite passing attack, an elite downfield passing attack where the defense knows you're passing. And really had Jalen Jones in trouble. And, this one's linked to my last 2 issues. And so when Jalen Jones is under pressure and when your offensive line is not having its best game, those 3rd and 15s can turn into dire situations and really almost unmanageable situations at times. And I think these third down woes have to be fixed because you're going to have to sustain drives, move the football, run some clock, and keep your defense off the field in these big games, or you're going to see what happened late in the game where the kid breaks a 50-yard run to win the game because your defense can't stop them. They don't have any energy. And when the energy goes down, the discipline and effort go down, and bad things like that happen. And so the third down was the first thing that I noticed. And then, man, this kid has had nothing positive said about him. And I'm not going to break him down. I don't really believe in breaking down players in terms of like character or anything like that. But I mean, Jalen Jones had probably his worst game of the season. And this is an issue that I tabbed, I believe, last Monday after their win. I was like, this offense almost looks like Jalen Jones or bust. If you stop Jalen Jones, you can beat Jackson State. And that's exactly what happened. This problem came full circle because Jones wasn't rolling, and then this offense completely stalled. 38% completion percentage for only 180 passing yards. He had a passing touchdown, 2 interceptions, had 94 yards rushing, and 2 rushing touchdowns. He struggled really bad in the first half, guys, but especially in the third quarter, really seemed to shine, find his rhythm. That team took off, and that's where you saw this game become very competitive. He looked real uncomfortable, though, in the pocket, and I don't blame him for this because this third issue is what kind of caused this, I believe. So he looked very uncomfortable because he was sacked 5 times and he took multiple hits and was under pressure, under duress constantly. And there was just so many unblocked rushers and blitzers that you just can't expect this dude to sit back in the pocket and be comfortable. Once you get him moving on his feet, his accuracy decreased. The corners were in positions to make excellent plays, and the wide receivers just seemed to be overwhelmed too because they probably weren't sure if they were getting the ball because Jones was so erratic down the stretch. But like Jackson State is going to have to really find a way to improve Jones' accuracy, move the pocket, and really get him out in space to shine. And you saw down the stretch, they had a lot of success, with sweeps with Jones, with power runs, with stuff like that, where they got Jones moving and using his athleticism to make plays. If you have to sit him down as a passer and throw it 50 times like he did this game, that's not the type of quarterback he is. You're going to lose probably 100 out of 100 times if Jalen Jones has to throw it 50 times. And I thought that Alabama State did a real good job of shutting down the run game, putting this game on Jones, and making him uncomfortable. And I think that was the difference in the game. To be completely honest with you guys, it was a very bad game for Jones. I think he'll bounce back. I think he has that makeup, that type of build. But I want to get to probably the biggest issue this weekend, and that's O-line inconsistency. The O-line was abysmal. Let's just be honest, guys. I don't want to call anyone out by name, but just the complete offensive line breakdown that we saw this weekend was a serious, serious problem. I mean, they gave up 5 sacks. They lacked or failed to show any physicality up front to win this close game, and that makes me worried further down the road when they get into some tough games. Is this offensive line going to be able to step up? The scheme that Alabama State was running was so simple to just block, but it wasn't for Jackson State because there didn't seem to be there didn't seem to be any communication among the offensive linemen. And I played offensive lineman in high school, and like the biggest thing is to communicate with your fellow offensive linemen about who has who. Watch for the blitzes, pick that up, understand your blocking scheme before the play snaps off. And Jalen Jones has to help them point out stuff and be like, okay, this guy could come. This is where we're weak. There was none of that. Alabama State was using simple delay blitzes and then just overmanning this offensive line. If they blocked 5, they would bring 6. They blocked 6, they would bring 7. It was just that simple. And that delay blitz allowed them to attack the weak point of the offensive line. And once they committed to a guy, I talk with my hands so much now. I'm moving. Once they committed to a guy, they just blitz that gap. That linebacker kid Bubble. I mean, the tackle went out, the guard blocked down with the center, and he came untouched through the B gap. No one should be coming untouched up the B gap on a goal line play, and they about got the running back killed. That cannot happen. They have to communicate better, have to pick up those blitzes, and you got to understand their blocking schemes better. If you don't understand the blocking scheme, the offense just is not going to work. And the running game suffered so much because of this. So Tyson Alexander, if you look at the main stats, it's not bad. Averaged about 4.5 yards per rush. But if you take away the 48-yard explosive run he had, he averaged 1.6 yards on the other 17 attempts. That's unacceptable, man. You cannot average 1.7 yards per rush for your leading running back and expect to win a game like this. And then Jalen Jones, yeah, he was the leading rusher, but a lot of those he was under duress and had to escape the pocket. Down the stretch, they were running power, zone runs with him. That's all fine and well, but you got to give me more at times. And this offensive line has to be better for a realistic SWAC run. They probably were the biggest problem for the Tigers this weekend, and it makes me very worried because they got some good defensive lines coming up later in their schedule. They have to get this done. Luckily, listen, this game I feel like this game was almost needed for Jackson State. All they've heard is the praise, the jubilation, the attention, the whatever you want to call it. All they've heard is like, man, look how great we are, guys. Well, now all that praise and celebration has turned into, oh, we got some major flaws here. Very hard to go into film study after being undefeated, ranked for the first time, and being like, yeah, we need to change something, because why would you change anything? You're winning. Taking a beating like this, whether it be 7 points or not, they got outclassed in many ways. Makes it a lot easier for the coaches to come into film study and be like, man, here, and here is where we need to get better. I think this exposed their biggest flaws, and I think it's going to be a great job for this coaching staff to get in there and really make some major improvements for this team. The season is far from over, guys. Jackson State has improved week in and week out, and I expect them to continue this trajectory, after this loss. Deion Sanders fired up after the game. They put his picture up on the scoreboard and made fun of him. He was real he was real pissed off about that, to be honest. I expect that and this loss to light a fire under him, which he will in turn light under this team. I expect the comeback to be bigger than the setback for this team. And guys, their game next week canceled due to COVID issues, postponed, so they have another extra week possibly to get ready. They have some big games coming up, but this Jackson State team suffers their first loss of the season, guys. It was tough to watch for me, man. I was rooting so hard for these boys. I've had a blast covering them. We're going to keep this going, and Alabama State should be absolutely credited for their amazing performance this weekend. They deserved it. That running game, that defense, the energy in that stadium from all the fans that showed up, man, shout out to y'all. Y'all made it awesome to watch on TV. I would love to get down to a game this year at Jackson State and see this, but the Alabama State fans showed up big time. That stadium's beautiful. I pass it all the time when I lived down in Alabama as I was going from Auburn to Mobile. So I need to get over there for a game. It's a beautiful stadium. But guys, that is a wrap here, man. We went a little bit over time, but there was a lot to talk about this week. It was a huge game with a lot of storylines. But guys, go ahead and subscribe to the Bluebloods, man. Y'all are already here listening to the 2-minute drill. If y'all like these 2-minute drill episodes, subscribe. If you already are a listener to the podcast, man, go ahead and subscribe here. And even if you just watch it on YouTube or audio versions, go ahead and subscribe to your favorite podcast streaming platform and our YouTube, man. It helps us out. And as always, guys, hit that notification bell so y'all are notified anytime we post any 2-minute drill, Blue Bloods, draft, anything type of content. And also make sure to like this video, give it a thumbs up, man. It helps us get this content out here, and it helps us build this platform, build our brand up. And like I said, guys, man, we have been blowing past subscribers, man. When I started the 2-minute drill, I believe we were like 18. We are up over 50 now, man. So I really, really appreciate it, guys, man. Y'all are the best. And like I said, when we get to 100, we're going to do a big merch giveaway. And I'm going to be picking one of the first 100 subscribers to our YouTube channel to be given that to. I believe I said I'm doing 5 or 10. We'll get the details sorted out, but y'all are going to have a good chance to win that if you're in the first 100. We're at, I believe, 53 or 54 now. So shout out to y'all for that, man. But for myself, for the Blue Bloods, for the 2-minute drill, we are out.